difficult, but it's in addition to being untrustworthy, you are also ineffective in a very important part of your job, which is shaping the policies that do affect national security. And that should be the open border should be the biggest challenge that your administration is recognizing right now, and unfortunately is not. And I think your biggest problem personally is that it's not just me that doesn't trust you; it's the American people that don't trust you right now as a result of that. Can I just get a simple yes or no response to this question? Does the open border policy make your job easier or harder? Are we safer or less safe as a result of the open border policy?
I have been consistent over the years, frankly, in citing my concerns about the threats that emanate from the border.
Okay.
And as to the long narrative that you went through at the beginning, needless to say, I disagree very strongly with any number of aspects of it, but I recognize that we're time limited.
I want you to acknowledge that the open border policy makes us more insecure than strong. So I want to know, what have your discussions been with the president? Have you been able to go into his office and say, boss, this open border policy is a galactically stupid policy from a national security perspective? Have you had that conversation? If so, what did that look like? What has been the response? And how are we shaping this to make us more secure in the future?
Well, I'm not going to get into specific conversations with people. I've been consistent in my message externally and internally about my concerns about the threats that are, from the FBI's perspective, that emanate from the border.
A recent discourse between Representative Mike Garcia and FBI Director Christopher Wray has brought into sharp focus the challenges facing the agency's leadership. Representative Garcia's astute and inquisitive dialogue underscored apprehensions regarding transparency, the politicization of national security tools, and the handling of prior FISA abuses. Demonstrating a profound commitment to national defense, Representative Garcia voiced reservations about the agency's approach to significant threats, especially concerning border security. His comments, echoing Director Wray's testimony, emphasized the critical importance of proactive security measures. Director Wray, in response, maintained a steadfast position on border threats while acknowledging broader concerns.
Ray, I'll be honest with you, and this pains me to say this, but I don't trust you. I don't think that this is necessarily a funding problem that we have for your agency as much as a leadership problem. And between the lack of transparency in hearings like this and in intel hearings, your weaponization and politicization of issues and instruments of national security against innocent Americans and against institutions like churches, and the fact that you have held no one truly accountable for prior FISA abuses that we have all seen and recognized. I think you yourself have acknowledged that there's been abuses, and because of the fact that as the FBI director that you've stood relatively silent and passive about the biggest national security threat to our nation, that being our very open southern border, as the chairman has been discussing. I give very little credence in either your ability to do this job or, frankly, lead the brave agents below you, and I don't trust you to protect us, and that is a very difficult thing for me to say. It pains me to say that because your job is critically important to the safety of this nation and American lives, and I think because of your inability to lead and also shape the policies in the DOJ and at the White House, we are now in a more precarious position than we were, I would submit, than we were on September 10th of 2001. You yourself say in your written testimony that over the past year, the threats facing our nation have escalated. The breadth of these threats and challenges are as complex as any time in our history, and the consequences of not responding and countering these threats have never been greater. These are your words. And we don't only pay you to warn us of a threat, which you have eloquently done here, although that's important and appreciated that you're warning us, but we also pay you to prevent and protect us from the threats. And you're in an agency, and I'm on committees where I'm your authorizer on the Intel Committee, and I'm your appropriator here on the CJS Subcommittee on Appropriations, and I find it difficult to trust you to protect us, and any data or budget requests you bring to us as a result of that is, in my opinion, suspect. And in your nearly 20 pages of written testimony, you've mentioned the southern border only approximately 4 times, and even then you kind of gloss over it. And we now have 7 million people in our country, 350 people on the FBI terror watch list who have been apprehended, plus another 1.7 million known gotaways here within our borders as a result of your leadership's border policies. And I say your leadership and not your bosses because you're your bosses are the American people, right? Your customers are the American people. You work for them. You work for the people to protect them. So your leadership, the President of the United States, AG Garland, and Director of Homeland Security Mayorkas are literally intentionally putting the people that you work for, the average American citizen, into a clear and present danger situation that you yourself have acknowledged in your written testimony. So you've testified before the Intel Committee with the Worldwide Threats briefs and other committees that there are giant red warning lights and warning signs and lots of flashing signs from a threat and terrorism assessment perspective. You know, and it's evident that you know and agree with this notion and that we should all be concerned. Yet, despite this, you have been unable to change the policies driven by your leadership, by the President, the AG, DHS Mayorkas. And so it's difficult, but it's in addition to being untrustworthy, you are also ineffective at a very important part of your job, which is shaping the policies that do affect national security. And that should be, the open border should be the biggest challenge that your administration is recognizing right now, and unfortunately is not. And I think your biggest problem personally is that it's not just me that doesn't trust you, it's the American people that don't trust you right now as a result of that. Can I just get a simple yes or no response to this question? Does the open border policy make your job easier or harder? Are we safer or less safe as a result of the open border policy?
I have been consistent over the years, frankly, in citing my concerns about the threats that emanate from the border.
Okay.
And as to the long narrative that you went through at the beginning, needless to say, I disagree very strongly with any number of aspects of it, but I recognize that we're
in the
time
interest of
limited.
time, I want you to acknowledge that the open border policy makes us more insecure and strong. So I want to know, what have your discussions been with the President? Have you been able to go into his office and say, boss, this open border policy is a galactically stupid policy from a national security perspective? Have you had that conversation? If so, what did that look like? What has been the response? And how are we shaping this to make us more secure in the future?
Well, I'm not going to get into specific conversations with people. I've been consistent in my message externally and internally about my concerns about the threats that are from the FBI's perspective that emanate from the border.
During the House Appropriations Committee hearing today, Representative Andy Harris engaged in a notable colloquy with DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas regarding border policy. Dr. Harris commenced by seeking elucidation on Secretary Mayorkas' involvement in the congressional investigation into the events of January 6th, particularly concerning the utilization of paid informants and embedded federal agents. The discussion underscored the intricacies and controversies surrounding these methodologies. Harris also addressed President Trump's recent proclamation concerning a prospective executive order linked to 212F authority. He queried whether the president had solicited Secretary Mayorkas' perspective on this issue, given its import in immigration policy. Mayorkas clarified that the announcement had not been made by the president the previous night, indicating a misunderstanding.
First of all, just to follow up on the January 6th thing, you were the secretary while the congressional investigation went on, when the whole question of paid informants and embedded federal agents was brought up. Is that right?
Are you referring to the special committee?
Yeah, the special, quote, bipartisan committee. That's what I thought. So you're well aware of the controversies involved with the idea of federal agents embedded or paid informants and the whole Ray Epps thing. All right, let me just clear up the 212F issue right now, because the president is the one who raised it now, because apparently he's going to issue some kind of executive order. And I'm assuming he had the same authority to issue that executive order 3 years ago before 9 million people entered the country. Is that right? I mean, he's going to issue it tomorrow, and the gentleman raised the perfectly valid question, like, our laws didn't change in the past 3 years. Because Congress didn't do anything. God knows Congress didn't do anything on immigration. So I'm assuming we're operating under the same set of laws. So I just find it a little coincidental that, 7 months before an election where the president is down in the polls and immigration is the top issue, that the president gets religion on this. So has the feeling in the administration changed on 212F? Because we always asserted on our side of the aisle that the president had authority under 212F. No, because President Trump exerted the authority. So has the president sought your opinion on this? on his announcement last night, has the president sought the opinion of his secretary on this?
Congressman, let me share with you one fact. And that is,
Sir, I only have 1 minute, 10 seconds left. Did the president seek your opinion on his announcement last night that there is going to be executive order regarding his authorities under 212F?
that was not the president's announcement last night. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, the
In conclusion, the exchange between Andy Harris and Secretary Mayorkas underscored the critical issues surrounding border policy and detainee management. Harris's inquiries highlighted the need for effective communication and collaboration between federal and local authorities to ensure public safety and enforce immigration laws. Mayorkas's responses emphasized the ongoing efforts to persuade local jurisdictions to comply with detainer orders, emphasizing the importance of detaining individuals who pose a threat to public safety. The discussion also touched upon the complexities of executive authority in immigration policy. Overall, the dialogue exemplified the challenges and responsibilities faced by the Department of Homeland Security in protecting Americans and enforcing immigration laws.
My question was just, did he consult you? I think it's a simple question. I think you're being very evasive about it, and I'm going to leave it at that. Now, with regards to ICE detentions, in Montgomery County, Maryland, Montgomery County officials twice had a person who was issued detainers under ICE, twice released from prison, now charged with in the murder of a 2-year-old. Twice. What is this administration does to go to local jurisdictions and convince them to comply with detainers? Because as the gentleman from Texas indicated, the title of your department is Homeland Security. I would assume protecting Americans from illegal immigrants with detainer orders scheduled for deportation is something who will go on to kill someone, is something the administration might be interested in having. So what are you doing to convince local jurisdictions like Montgomery County to actually cooperate, not be a sanctuary jurisdiction, and cooperate with detain orders to get these dangerous individuals off our streets?
Congressman, we continue to work with local jurisdictions to persuade them that when an individual poses a threat to public safety and the individual has a detainer placed on him or her, that they honor the detainer and not release the individual onto the streets, but rather turn the individual over to Immigration and Customs Enforcement for continued detention. Mr. Chairman, may I have a 30-second privilege to answer?
I'll ask for the same 30-second privilege.
The prior administration executed what it believed to be its authority under 212F, and the courts